All right, hello OAS family. It is time for another book review, and we are reviewing a very special book today. This book is entitled Richly Adorned and Quietly Dressed, and the featured artist is Hwa San-chiuen. So before we get into the details of the book, the general statistics on it, the book is about 10 and an eighth inches tall by 10 and 5/8 inches wide. So it is roughly a square book, and it is a very specifically focused book that features fine line paintings of Chinese women in this artist's particular style. So it has been, we sold a lot of copies actually over the years to people who were interested in using the artwork as original inspiration for tattoo art. But it is a very wonderful book, as you will see as we get into it, for a lot of different artistic intentions. The paintings are absolutely beautiful, and there are quite a few of them in this book. So we'll just go ahead and dive in right away. And you can see that the text here is in both English and Chinese. So we have a table of contents that details all the featured paintings and which pages that they're on. And then a little background on the artist and his particular style and particular point of view on the subject matter. All right, so here we have on the left-hand side, so this section of the book is called Song and Dances. And so this painting here on the left-hand side is called Glorious. It has a depiction of a nymph from Chinese mythology performing on a flute. And then here is the nymph scattering blossoms in the sky, and the scattering of the blossoms has attracted butterflies. And then there is this blooming peony, which is a symbol of wealth and prosperity. So here we have a nymph holding peach, which is symbolic of happiness and longevity. And then here's the full painting with the nymph holding the peach alongside another character playing a flute. So here on the left-hand side, we have nymph standing on a lotus throne and offering with her two hands what is a bottle of immortal nectar. And all of these paintings are being offered with very broad wishings of prosperity, wealth, and longevity for the world. So here on the right-hand side, we have a couple nymph characters flying with beautiful poses in the sky. One of them has this round treasure box in her hand, and the other one is holding a lute, this instrument right here. And then we have a full painting here on the right-hand side, which is a nymph dancing with a embroidered ball. And then another character holding a musical instrument that's called a three-string. And there is also flying amongst them, there's a yellow dragon. And so this is the idea of wishing promotion, the idea of promotion or elevating. And then here is a zoom in of the picture of the nymph character holding the embroidered ball. And you can see here the details in the hair and the jewelry, and how delicate the fingers are, and the very specific poses as far as the way that the hands and the arms are gesturing. Very, very lovely. All right, so here we have on the left-hand side rainbow. So we have standing on the clouds. This is a nymph dancing with colorful ribbons, and then a rainbow in the background. And on the right-hand side, we have a nymph playing a harp, along with the rain goddess bestowing rain to the world with a willow branch. So she's holding a willow branch here, and there's rain coming out of the willow branch. So they are offering a blessing of fine weathers and rich harvests. And then on the left-hand side, this is an offering of prosperity. So on the right-hand side, we have symbols of dragon and phoenix together. This is a very common pairing in Chinese mythology. And then we have two nymphs dancing happily in the sky. One's holding a jade disc, and the jade disc is inscribed with lasting happiness character, and while the other one is scattering flowers in the sky. And then we have a close-up here of their faces. So we have on the left-hand side here this painting called Heavenly Treasures, and we have a nymph holding a precious pearl and dancing elegantly in front of a very large sun, and accompanied by a green dragon. And then you can see that peonies have fallen to the ground below them, carrying a blessing of wealth and a bright future. And then on the right-hand side, we have this auspicious Qiling bringing forth a child. This is the goddess of birth descending from the sky, riding this mythical animal called the Qiling, and she's holding a happy and wealthy child, ready to be given to a couple, expectant couple. So this is has a feeling of spring. This is two nymphs singing and dancing in the sky, bringing a blessing of peace and prosperity. And then there are three dragons flying amidst them, which are symbols of good fortune. I'm going to close up here on the left-hand side. So now we are getting into mortal characters now. So we have descended from the heavens and away from the mythical characters, and these are actual human characters. So this is a beloved concubine of the Emperor Ming Huang of the Tang Dynasty, and she is standing in front of this huge sculpture here, and then she's accompanied by a couple small dogs with this wonderful ornate lantern hanging. And then over here is a lady playing with a parrot. And then there is this idea of incense coming out of this dragon statue here. And then now we go back to the heavens. There are, on the left-hand side, we have nymph playing this instrument here. And then on the right-hand side, we have another nymph playing the castanets. So now this section they're calling Flowers in the Moonlight. Change the mood a little bit from these sort of bright, sunny renderings to something a little bit with a cooler color palette. And then we have this elegant lady here. And she's richly adorned with jewelry and beautifully dressed in silk. And then we have a woman taking a walk in the snow, admiring the plum blossoms that are classically blooming in the winter. And then we have this woman washing silk in the lotus pond. This was featured in our last email. Really wonderful painting that shows these beautiful renderings of this egrets and lotus in the background, and this little mini river scene in the foreground. Then on the left-hand side, we have mourning the passing of spring. So you can see sort of a woman here in this garden that has become to get overgrown with weeds. And it's highly symbolic because she is mourning the passing of her own beauty and youth as she as a spring is changing and turning into the next season, and broadly symbolic of the seasons of life. So here are two more nymphs descending from this mountain, an imaginary mountain where the immortals reside. And then they are here amongst these blooming yellow plum blossoms. And then this is a human character from the Wu Kingdom, which is the period of the known as the Three Kingdoms. It's from AD 220 to 265. And it was said that her father obtained the secret of immortality. And then this Lady Wu, along with her lover, followed her father's path and then rode to the mountain of the immortals on the backs of tigers. On the left-hand side, we have a nymph here holding a magic bottle, and accompanying here are two deers, which symbolize longevity. And says this painting is a blessing that the moon never wanes, the flowers never wither, and people obtain long-lasting happiness. Then on the right-hand side, we have a lady with beautiful eyebrows that are in the shape of willow leaves. And she's reading a book in the garden. She's pretending to read a book in the garden, or actually what she's really doing is showing off her eyebrows. So that's a whimsical sentiment about this character. So this is a late spring rendering of a character looking down at the flower in her hand and mourning the evanescence of beauty. Then on this left-hand side, we have a famous poet drinking wine and composing her verses in a boat. And then on the right-hand side, we have a lady with her maid. And the maid is unfolding a book that her mistress will read. Young lady here holding a fan and trying to catch butterflies. Really beautiful painting with a muted color palette. When they mute the color palette, it just gives it a completely different feel. And makes it, I think it makes it more modern looking. So on the left-hand side here, we have the joys of spring. Have a lady adorned in jewelry with the red skirt. And she is ready to play the zither, and it's carried by her maid. And on the right-hand side, we have a quietly dressed woman. She's wearing a hairstyle. This hairstyle apparently is only for married women. So that is a sign that she's married, and she's looking at little fish swimming in a pond, and water is pouring from a dragon spout. And then this one is called Fragrance of Lotus in the Summer. And this is a lady with a fan, and she has these very rich hair ornaments, and she's sitting on a rock by a lotus pond, supposedly contemplating her secrets. On the left-hand side here, we have Spring Mountain, and this is a nymph character carrying a basket of flowers. And she's standing all alone in the mountains, surrounded by clouds. And this tiger beside her identifies her as the nymph Wu Cai Luan, who had a love affair with a young gentleman. And then on the right-hand side, we have a nymph plucking fungus. And she's carrying a gourd which contains nectar, and riding on the back of a deer. And this white peacock has found a fungus and is offering it to the nymph. It's a really wonderful depiction of being in harmony with nature. Then on the right-hand side here, we have fully dressed lady with her maid in the garden with two little deers. And then zoom in on the left-hand side here. Then on the left, we have a fully dressed lady sitting on a rock, and she's playing chess. And then on the right-hand side, we have another beautiful lady listening to her maid playing the Chinese flute, holding a wine cup in her hand. And she's enjoying the moonlight. Then on the right-hand side, we have a lady wearing a leather hat and a red coat. And she's depicted as being partially drunk. And she's slightly opening her eyes to gaze at these two cranes with the fragrance of plum blossoms in the background. Left-hand side, we have a painting called Warm Breeze, and depicts a lady reading a book surrounded by butterflies. And then on the right-hand side here, we have a nymph who lives alone in the palace, and she's bending down to smell the fragrance of cassia. And she's accompanied by a rabbit standing upright and gazing curiously at her. So here is a lady wearing an elaborate headdress and having an encounter with two small deers in a bamboo forest. Then this section is called Sitting Alone. So this is a young woman accompanied by her maid, has come to a lotus pond to watch the fish. Then on the right-hand side, we have autumn night in the palace. There's a beautiful woman with a full moon. She's richly adorned, and but presents this idea that all her beautiful garments and jewelry are failing to bring her happiness. So a little bit of melancholy associated with this painting on the right. And then we have on the right-hand side, flowers in her hair embroidered on the skirt, and this lady is quietly reading a book. There are peonies blooming in a vase in the background, and this left-hand side, we have ladies playing with a parrot. This is a depiction of an imperial concubine from the Tang Dynasty. And then the concubine is wearing a phoenix crown. And then on the right-hand side, we have a lady character from the reign of Empress Wu in the Tang Dynasty. And she was an indispensable assistant to the Empress and became a very powerful member of the court. So this one's called Morning Toilet. This is a Tang Dynasty concubine who has no maids to assist her. And this sort of feeling of abandonment, it says, because she's lacking the rich garment, and her hair ornaments also bespeak of her loneliness. So on the left-hand side, we have this morning, the passing of spring. And then another kind of symbol of a lady sort of reminding that along with the passing of her spring, the seasons of her life is changing. And then on the right-hand side, we have this leisure time painting, which is a young lady enjoying the easiness of comfort of her studio, reading a book. And then we have a bonsai narcissus and plum blossoms in a vase that hint that the season is winter. And then here is a depiction of a famous poet, Li Qingqiao, reading in her studio. The left-hand side, we have two ladies. This is a painting called the Taoist Temple, and two ladies are watching two cranes in the garden of a Taoist temple. Then on the right-hand side, we have garden in the early summer, some dragonflies flying around, and then a woman who's drowsed after reading on a hot summer day. And she's standing by the side of a pond. Very lovely muted color palette on this, very modern looking color palette. And this is a woman reading idly in the deep night and suddenly hearing a sigh from far away. She lifts her eyes and watches the full moon. And this section of the book is called Dream of the Red Chamber. So this has a depiction of a woman who very intelligently and cunningly runs the household of a very prominent family. And it's depicting her as very calculating. And then on the right-hand side, we have a lady who is married to the emperor and brought wealth and prosperity to her household, but herself was unhappy. So, you know, we have this theme of this lady wearing these gorgeous clothes, but in this melancholy mood. And then here we have a character, ambitious female character, wanting to save this famous family from decadence. But here she is shown composing a poem with withered cassia blossoms. And every single one of these paintings is filled with so much symbolism. And so this book is really a collection of treasures that just, as you delve into the details, it just gives you more and more. So this is a depiction of a woman catching butterflies here. And then saying that she's unhappy because her husband could never forget his first love. And then this is another depiction of a woman from a historic tale who was not wise enough to resist the temptation of her father-in-law. Then on the right-hand side, we have this beautiful woman sleeping in the peonies. She's become drunk and she's resting on a stone bench amongst the blooming of the peonies. The left-hand side, we have the youngest daughter of this very famous family, and she is here painting. And then on the right-hand side, this is a depiction of a nun offering tea. Then on the right-hand side here, we have this idea of a mother teaching her son. And historically, her husband died young, and she never remarried and instead dedicated her whole life to educating her son. And she is a model of the virtuous woman in Chinese society. Then on the left-hand side, we have this melancholy scene where we have this young woman mourning the loss of her parents and sort of burying this withered flower, and the flowers are a metaphor of her sadness. And then the right-hand side is we have a woman, an angry woman who's taking her anger out on these delicate fans. And then we close with this depiction of a woman in this red sort of hood and cape and plucking plum blossoms in the snow. And she is inspired by the beauty of this scenery, and she's improvising a poem right on the spot. So that is that. That is Richly Adorned and Quietly Dressed. Once again, a really, really special book. And you can find this book available for sale on our website at orientalartsupply.com. And make sure you like and subscribe this video for more content like this. And we wish you happy painting.
you.